Ella's father disowned her and sent her out of his house because she got pregnant out of wedlock. Neighbors including Ella's mother and his best friend begged him to reconsider his decision because Ella was still his blood, but he refused to listen to any of them. 4 years later, he regretted the decision he took when Ella returned with a very shocking revelation. What is this secret that Ella came back with? How would her father react after finding out the truth? Let's go straight into this story that will leave you speechless. In a quiet village of Arbar, there lived a very beautiful, adorable and cheerful girl named Ella. Ella was just 16 years old. Ella had bright eyes that shone like diamonds and a smile that makes everyone happy by just looking at her. Everyone in the village loved her. She always played with the village children. She greeted everyone with respect. "Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma," she would often greet as she walked to the village stream to fetch water. The old men would say proudly, "That girl is a very respectful girl. God will bless her for this kind heart she has. Can't you be like Ella?" Other parents would often say as they scolded their children. Ella lived in an average house with her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Isaiah. Mr. Isaiah was a tall, broad-shouldered man with kind eyes and a calm voice that made people listen whenever he spoke. His dark skin glowed under the sun, and he always wore neatly ironed shirts, even when working. He owned a building materials shop in the village market, where he sold cement, nails, and roofing sheets. The shop was always busy because people trusted him. He was honest, patient, and known as Deacon Isaiah in their church. His wife, Grace Isaiah, was a hard-working woman with a round face and warm, motherly eyes. She sold fresh fish at the village market, her laughter ringing out as she called to customers. Her hands always smelled faintly of fish and smoke from her small charcoal stove, but she never complained. Every morning before dawn, she would arrange her baskets and whisper a short prayer. Together, Mr. and Mrs. Isaiah made a respected and loving family in Arbar. Mr. Isaiah loved Ella so much, he called her my angel. One warm evening in the quiet village of Arbar, Ella sat by the doorway, her head resting on her knees. The usual sparkle in her eyes was gone. Her skin looked pale, and beads of sweat gathered on her forehead. Suddenly, she stood up quickly and ran behind the house, bending over to vomit. The sound caught her mother's attention. "Ella, what's wrong, my child?" Mrs. Isaiah called, rushing toward her. Ella wiped her mouth weakly. "It's nothing, Mama," she whispered. "Maybe it's just fever." But the vomiting didn't stop. Day after day, Ella grew weaker. She could barely eat or fetch water. Mrs. Isaiah's heart pounded with fear. One morning, unable to watch her daughter suffer any longer, she tied her wrapper tightly and took Ella to the village doctor, a wrinkled old man named Dr. Bright. He examined Ella carefully, his face growing serious as he looked at the test results. "Madam," he said softly, removing his glasses, "your daughter is 4 weeks pregnant." For a moment, the world went silent. Mrs. Isaiah's eyes widened in disbelief. "Pregnant," she whispered, her voice trembling. Ella's lips quivered, tears rolling down her cheeks. She bowed her head in shame. The room spun around her mother as the truth shattered her heart. The evening sun cast long shadows over the Isaiah compound in Arbar. Inside the small parlor, Mrs. Isaiah sat restlessly, her hands trembling as she twisted the edge of her wrapper. She had tried to keep the news to herself, but the weight was too heavy. Finally, she whispered, "Isaiah, I can't hide it anymore. It's Ella, she's pregnant." Mr. Isaiah froze. The wooden chair creaked as he slowly turned to face her, disbelief written all over his face. "What did you just say?" he asked, his voice deep and shaking. "She's 4 weeks gone," Grace said, tears filling her eyes. The doctor confirmed it. "Pregnant. In my house. And she won't tell us who is responsible," he roared. He felt deeply shamed. He rose suddenly, his face tightening in anger. "Where is she?" he thundered. "Inside," Grace murmured. "Ella," he shouted. His voice echoed through the house. Ella came rushing in, her hands trembling, her eyes red from crying. "Who is responsible?" he demanded, his voice like thunder. She knelt before her father, tears streaming down her face. Her lips quivered. She looked down, silent. "I said, who?" he roared, slamming his fist on the wooden table. Still, she said nothing. Mr. Isaiah, holding a cane, looked at her with anger and pain. "You were the pride of this house," he said, his voice trembling with rage. "Now you have brought disgrace. If you want to be a mother, go and live like one. You are no longer my daughter. You are not welcome here." "Isaiah, please, don't do this," Grace cried, holding his arm. But Mr. Isaiah's face was hard. She made her choice. Let her live with it. Ella's legs shook as she stepped out of the house, tears streaming down her cheeks. The orange evening sky blurred in her eyes. She could hear her mother crying behind her. A few minutes later, Grace ran after her, clutching a small bag and a piece of bread wrapped in cloth. She reached Ella by the dusty road. "My child," she said softly, pressing the bag into her hands, "please tell me who did this. Maybe your father will forgive you." Ella shook her head, her voice breaking. "Mama, no one will believe me. They will call me a liar. It's better I keep quiet." Grace's tears fell freely. "Where will you go?" "I don't know," Ella whispered. "But I can't go back." The wind rustled the trees as Ella turned and walked away, her small figure fading down the lonely path. Grace stood watching, her heart heavy with sorrow, until the dusk swallowed her daughter completely. The road stretched endlessly before Ella as she walked far from the quiet village of Arbar. Her slippers were dusty, her legs weak, and her eyes heavy from tears. The once gentle breeze now felt harsh against her tired skin. After many hours, she reached a noisy town filled with the sound of traders shouting, children running, and motorbikes honking. Her stomach growled painfully. She found a quiet spot under a large mango tree, unwrapped the small bundle her mother had given her, and ate the leftover bread and dried fish slowly. When she finished, her body gave in to exhaustion. She curled up beneath the tree and fell into a deep sleep. When she opened her eyes, a small crowd had gathered around her. A man asked, "Young girl, where are you from? Why are you here alone?" Ella's voice shook. I ran away from my wicked stepmother," she lied. Among them was a kind woman named Becky, who looked at her with pity. "Come with me, my child," she said softly. Becky gave her warm food and a small room to rest. The next morning, Becky sat by Ella's bed. "Tell me the truth, my dear. Who are you really?" Tears filled Ella's eyes as she confessed, "My father sent me away because I got pregnant." Becky sighed and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're safe now. You'll start again." Ella smiled weakly, comforted for the first time in weeks. She began to smile again, but she often thought of her mother and her father's angry words. She started helping Becky, fetching water, cooking, and cleaning. Months passed, and her belly grew round and heavy. When the time came, Becky held her hand as she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. "She's perfect," Ella whispered, naming her Hope. A month later, Lily overheard Becky talking to a man. They were discussing selling baby Hope for a large sum of money. Ella was horrified. She realized Becky was not as kind as she seemed. Clutching baby Hope, Ella knew she had to escape without a second thought. She wrapped Hope in a cloth, grabbed a small bag, and ran into the darkness, clutching her baby tightly against her chest. The night was cold as Ella walked along the lonely road, clutching baby Hope tightly to her chest. The moonlight cast soft shadows on the path ahead, and every few steps, Hope let out a weak, hungry cry that tore through Ella's heart. Her feet were sore, her wrapper torn, and her throat dry. She whispered softly, "Please, my baby, just hold on. Mama will find you something." But there was no one around, only the distant sound of crickets and the rustle of dry leaves beneath her tired feet. After what felt like endless hours, the faint glow of lights appeared ahead, another town. The air buzzed with noise, buses honked, traders shouted, and music played from nearby shops. People hurried past her, laughing and talking. Ella, exhausted and desperate, stopped several passers-by. "Please, help me," she begged, her voice trembling. "My baby is hungry." But they looked away, pretending not to hear. A few gave her pitying glances, but no one stopped. Her legs finally gave way, and she sank beside the roadside, clutching Hope as tears streamed down her dusty face. The baby's soft cries grew weaker. Just then, a black car pulled over nearby. A tall, well-dressed man stepped out. His face was calm, his voice deep and gentle. "Young lady, are you all right?" he asked. Ella looked up, her voice barely a whisper. "Please, my baby hasn't eaten. We've been walking for hours." The man knelt beside her. "My name is Andrew," he said kindly. "You can't stay out here. Come with me, I'll help you." Ella hesitated. Her heart raced as she remembered Becky, the woman who had tried to sell her child. But as she looked down at Hope's tiny face, pale from hunger, she swallowed her fear and nodded. "Thank you, sir." Andrew led them to a clean, quiet flat on the edge of town. Inside, the lights were soft, the air smelled of soap and cooked food. He handed her a plate of rice and warm milk for the baby. Tears filled Ella's eyes as she whispered, "God bless you, sir." Over the next 3 months, things seemed peaceful. Andrew bought her new clothes, toys for Hope, and often told Ella, "You and your baby are safe here." He smiled often, and she began to trust him. But soon, small things began to change. Andrew's eyes lingered on her too long. He started knocking on her door late at night, pretending to ask if she needed anything. Sometimes, she heard his footsteps outside her room, waiting. One evening, as Hope slept peacefully in her arms, Andrew came in quietly and locked the door behind him. His expression was cold. "Ella," he said, stepping closer, "you owe me. I've fed you, housed you. It's time you take care of me in return." Ella's heart froze. "Please, sir, don't," she whispered, clutching Hope tightly. Before he could move closer, the doorbell rang, breaking the tension. Angry, Andrew turned toward the door. "Stay here," he ordered, unlocking the door and leaving the room. As soon as he left, Ella's eyes darted to the small key she kept hidden in the drawer. With trembling hands, she unlocked the back door, wrapped Hope securely in a blanket, and slipped out quietly into the cold night once again, her heart pounding, her only thought to run and never look back. Ella ran through the dark streets, her bare feet slapping against the wet ground. The night wind whipped through her hair as she clutched baby Hope tightly to her chest. Fear pushed her forward, she didn't dare look back. Streetlights flickered weakly, and dogs barked in the distance. Her breath came in short gasps until her legs finally gave out. Ahead, a small church stood, its cross glowing faintly in the moonlight. With her last strength, Ella staggered to the front steps and collapsed. Moments later, the church door opened, and a gentle voice called out, "Oh dear Lord, what happened here?" It was Mother Mary, the pastor's wife, a plump, warm-faced woman with kind eyes. She knelt beside Ella, lifted Hope carefully, and whispered, "You're safe now, my child." Mother Mary took Ella and Hope inside, fed them, and gave them clean clothes. The church members welcomed her like family. For the first time since she left home, Ella felt peace. Mother Mary taught her how to cook and bake, and soon, Ella began selling rice and beans outside the church gate. Her meals were so delicious that people lined up every day. Her business grew, and she became known for her delicious food. Years passed. Ella and Hope lived happily at the church. Years rolled by like a slow river in the quiet village of Arbar. The Isaiah compound, once full of laughter and pride, now felt empty and cold. The walls that once echoed with Ella's cheerful singing now carried only silence and regret. Mr. Isaiah sat outside each evening, staring blankly at the dusty road, his shoulders bent and weary. The proud man who once owned one of the busiest building material shops in the village had lost everything. His best friend, Mr. David, had introduced him to a sure cryptocurrency investment, promising quick and huge profits. Trusting him blindly, Mr. Isaiah invested all his savings, even sold part of his shop. At first, David's messages came regularly, promising that the money was growing. But one morning, he vanished. His phone was off. His house was empty. Mr. Isaiah waited for weeks, then months, but David never returned. By the time he realized he had been tricked, it was too late. He sold his last goods to feed himself and his wife. Debt collectors came often, shouting at their gate. Villagers whispered about how Deacon Isaiah had fallen. The shame was unbearable. He began to avoid church. He no longer led prayers or gave advice to the youth. He would just sit outside, staring at the horizon where Ella had disappeared years ago. Sometimes, his lips moved in silent prayers he couldn't finish. But Mrs. Isaiah, Grace, remained strong. Her fish business barely sustained them, but she never stopped hoping. Every evening, after washing her hands of the fish smell, she would sit on the veranda and whisper, "Where are you, my child? Are you safe?" Some nights, she dreamed of Ella calling her name. She would wake up crying softly beside her sleeping husband. Then, one bright afternoon, as she returned from the market with her basket, a familiar voice called out, "Mama Ella." Wait. It was Mama Mercy, her old friend who had moved to the city years ago. "Grace, you won't believe what I saw," Mama Mercy said, panting slightly. "I think I saw your daughter in the city." Grace's heart skipped. "My Ella? Are you sure?" Mama Mercy nodded eagerly. Yes. She was selling food outside a big church. She looked so beautiful, strong, and happy. I called her name, but she was busy serving customers. I wasn't sure it was really her. Grace dropped her basket, her hands shaking. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "Oh, thank you, God. My daughter is alive." When the news spread, some villagers began to whisper cruelly. "Don't get your hopes up," one woman said. "Girls who disappear and later appear in the city often do bad things." But Grace silenced them. "My Ella is not like that," she said firmly. "I raised a disciplined child. Whatever she's doing, I know it's something good." After years of struggle, Ella had grown into a strong, confident young woman. Her food business outside the church flourished, and her meals were loved by many. One afternoon, as she served her customers, a woman in elegant clothes and dark sunglasses stopped her car nearby. She stepped out gracefully and smiled. "My dear," she said warmly, "your food is the best I've tasted in this city. What's your name?" "Ella, Ma," she replied politely. "I'm Madam Tasha," the woman said, adjusting her gold bracelet. "I run a catering company and work with important clients. You're talented. Would you like to do more than sell by the roadside? I can help you." Her voice was smooth, her tone reassuring. For a moment, Ella hesitated. Something about the woman's confidence felt both kind and intimidating. But the idea of expanding her business was tempting. She thought of hope and smiled. "Thank you, Ma. I would love to learn more." A few days later, Madam Tasha sent a driver to pick her up. When Ella arrived at the mansion, her breath caught. The building was grand, white walls, marble floors, shining chandeliers. Several young women dressed in expensive clothes moved quietly around the house. But their eyes were hollow, their smiles forced. Something felt off. That night, as Ella helped in the kitchen, she heard voices from the hallway. She froze when she recognized Madam Tasha's voice. "Yes, she's beautiful and well-trained," Tasha whispered into her phone. "The man will pay double for her. Make sure the car is ready tomorrow night." Ella's blood ran cold. Her hands trembled as she hid behind the wall. Sell her. The truth crashed over her. Madam Tasha was running a human trafficking ring, using the guise of business to lure and sell young women. That night, Ella couldn't sleep. She remembered her own pain, how life had nearly destroyed her, how men and lies had tried to break her spirit. She looked at the frightened girls around her and made a decision. She wouldn't let this evil continue. Quietly, she began collecting evidence, pictures, audio recordings, and names. Then, pretending to trust Madam Tasha, she said, "Ma, please, I left something important at the church. Can I go and bring it?" Tasha smiled proudly. "Of course, my dear. But don't take long." Ella nodded, hiding her fear. The moment she returned to the church, she ran straight to Mother Mary, her voice shaking as she explained everything. Mother Mary held her hand. "You did the right thing, my child. We'll go to the police." The next morning, Ella walked into the police station, clutching the evidence. Calmly, she told the officers everything. Within hours, flashing sirens lit the city. The police raided Tasha's mansion, bursting through the gates. The women inside screamed with relief as officers freed over 100 young ladies. Bags of hard drugs and ledgers with names and payments were seized. Madam Tasha was dragged out in handcuffs, weeping. She confessed to using charms on the girls. "Please, it's the devil's work," she cried. Days later, on national TV, The police awarded Ella for her courage. Her story inspired thousands. Donations poured in from people who admired her strength. With the money, she opened her dream restaurant, Hope's Kitchen, named after her daughter. She hired single mothers and struggling women, feeding them with love, respect, and second chances. Ella was invited by Bella, her friend who was getting married, to supply food to her grand wedding. Ella was very happy, her little business was already growing. The day of Bella's grand wedding dawned bright and golden. The city was alive with excitement, the church bells rang joyfully, and colorful ribbons danced in the morning breeze. Inside the large reception hall, chandeliers glittered like 1,000 tiny suns, and flowers of pink, white, and gold lined every table. Laughter and music filled the air as guests in shining clothes moved about, greeting one another with cheer. In the midst of the celebration, Ella arrived quietly, dressed in a simple white blouse and a neat blue wrapper. Her face glowed with calm confidence, and beside her stood little Hope, now a bright-eyed 4-year-old with curls that bounced when she walked. Behind them, Ella's staff carried trays and dishes, steaming pots of jollof rice, fried meat, and soups that filled the air with rich aroma. "Set the dishes along that table," Ella said softly, smiling as she adjusted Hope's small scarf. This was a proud day for her. She had built a business from nothing, and being chosen to cater for her friend's wedding was an honor she cherished deeply. As she walked around the hall, checking that everything was perfect, her eyes caught a large banner hanging near the stage. The smiling faces of the bride and groom beamed down from it, Bella and Mr. David. The world around her seemed to stop. The laughter faded. The music blurred. Her heart pounded loudly in her chest as she stared at the familiar face, older, but unmistakable. The same man whose visits to her father's house had once filled her with dread. Her fingers trembled as she held Hope close. For a moment, the room spun. Memories she had buried deep flooded back, his voice, his cold smile, his warning. Bella noticed how unusual she stood. She walked up to her in her wedding gown and called Ella. "Are you okay? What's wrong?" Ella hesitated, tears gathering in her eyes. "Bella, the man you're marrying. Mr. David. I know him. Would you believe me if I told you something?" she asked Bella. "Of course I trust you," Bella responded, looking anxious and confused. "Mr. David used to visit our home when I was 16. My parents trusted him, he was my father's best friend." Her voice broke. "He would tell me I was beautiful, grown up. And one day, when no one was home, she stopped, pressing a trembling hand to her mouth. "He ruined my life, Bella. He threatened me, said no one would believe me. And if I told my parents, he was going to hurt them. I kept quiet all these years." The room fell silent. Only the distant hum of the celebration could be heard. Bella's bouquet slipped from her hand and fell to the floor. She stared at Ella, her eyes wide, her breathing quick. "Ella, are you sure?" Tears streamed down Ella's face. "I wish I wasn't." Bella turned and behold, Mr. David, looking innocent, was smiling and laughing hard as he welcomed guests. Bella stormed out of the wedding hall. Few guests turned and were surprised but didn't understood what was going on. And there, amidst the whispers and stunned silence, Ella stood frozen, holding Hope tightly. The child looked up at her mother's trembling face and touched her cheek gently. "Mama," Hope whispered, "why are you crying?" Ella knelt, hugging her daughter close as tears fell silently down her face. Around her, the music had stopped, the crowd murmured, and the once joyful hall was now filled with the heavy weight of truth, a truth that had waited 4 long years to be spoken. That night, the air was heavy with tension as Bella and Ella walked into the dimly lit police station, their faces pale but determined. Hope slept quietly in Ella's arms while Bella spoke firmly, her voice trembling as she recounted everything Ella had told her. The officer in charge listened carefully, taking notes. "We'll act immediately," he said. Within an hour, flashing blue lights cut through the night as police cars stopped before Mr. David's house. He tried to deny it, but the evidence and witnesses stood strong. That night, he was arrested for misconduct with a minor, his shame finally exposed. The news spread like wildfire across Bar. The young woman who had helped the police uncover a powerful human trafficking ring and exposed a child molester was none other than Ella Isaiah, the daughter everyone thought lost, or worse. On the television screen, Ella stood tall, her voice calm and confident as she spoke about courage, forgiveness, and giving hope to others. In their small, worn-out house, Mr. and Mrs. Isaiah sat frozen in front of the flickering TV. The moment Ella's face appeared, Mrs. Isaiah screamed, pressing her hands to her mouth. "It's her. Isaiah, it's our Ella." Tears rolled down her wrinkled cheeks as she fell to her knees. "My child, my daughter, Mr. Isaiah, once a proud man now worn by hardship and guilt, lowered his head. The weight of shame pressed on his chest like a stone. He buried his face in his hands. 4 days, he said little, spending long hours outside the house, staring into space. A week later, the entire street buzzed with excitement. A white GLE Benz rolled slowly through the dusty road, gleaming under the afternoon sun. Children ran alongside it, shouting. Mrs. Isaiah rushed out before the car even stopped. The door opened, and Ella stepped out, elegant yet simple, dressed in a flowing white gown. In her arms was a little girl, bright-eyed, beautiful, and smiling shyly. "Hope," Ella said softly, "this is Grandma." Mrs. Isaiah collapsed into tears as she hugged them both tightly. My baby, I thought I lost you forever." Her cries were so deep, so full of love and regret, that even the neighbors watching from afar wiped their eyes. Then, Mr. Isaiah appeared at the doorway. His once strong frame was frail, his eyes hollow with remorse. He stood still, trembling. Ella looked at him with quiet strength and slowly walked toward him. Then, she knelt down before him, holding Hope's hand. "I guess you know the truth now, Papa," she said softly, her voice breaking. "Mr. David, his Hope's father." The words hit him like a blow. His knees gave way, and he fell beside her, weeping uncontrollably. "My child, I'm sorry I wronged you. I let my pride and anger blind me. Please, forgive me." Ella reached out, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'm sorry for bringing you shame." She handed him a small brown envelope. "I bought land in your name, and your debts are cleared. Our family's honor is restored." Mr. Isaiah held her hands and sobbed openly. "I don't deserve you, Ella." She smiled through her tears. "Maybe not, but grace doesn't keep records." Months passed, and our bar was never the same again. Ella opened a new branch of Hope's Kitchen, where her father worked humbly beside her mother. She also started Hope's Foundation, a foundation for abused girls and single mothers, giving them shelter, skills, and second chances. Meanwhile, Becky and Mr. David faced justice for their wicked deeds. To every young girl or boy facing abuse, speak up. No matter who the person is, your voice matters. Don't let fear or shame silence you. Tell someone you trust until someone listens. You are not weak, you are brave for speaking the truth. And to every parent, listen with love before judging. Don't let anger or pride make you blind to your child's pain. Protect first, question later. One moment of disbelief can break a child's spirit. If Mr. Isaiah had listened, their story would have been different. But grace still found them and turned pain into purpose. Like this video and share to your loved ones if you enjoyed the story. Subscribe to my channel so you can see more interesting stories when I post. Bye for now.